Hey, all, it's Mary Ellen Slater here, and I am the CEO of RepCap. We're a content marketing agency that works with B2B thought leaders, creating like a variety of types of video and other content, for social media and many other things these days. And I am excited today because I want to talk to you about LinkedIn, because as a B2B marketer, I'd say LinkedIn is the channel that I get the most questions about. Like the most often that somebody comes to me in a panic and says, we should be doing something on LinkedIn, right? We really should be something. And a lot of times the questions get very tactical, like very quickly. It's usually spurred because their boss saw or somebody was posting something, or like or it might even be like, well, what's this newsletter? Should we have a newsletter? There's always like a lot of changes, and the algorithm for LinkedIn changes a lot. But what I want to do today, and I'm going to talk about some of those very specific tactical things and answer some of those questions, but I really want to spend our time thinking about some core principles that I think will serve you well on LinkedIn, regardless of the vagaries of the algorithm, because as I noted, they are always changing. So those principles, that I want to chat about here. Let's first, actually, hold on. I mentioned it. I can finish introducing myself. Actually, we also changed our tech setup here a little bit. So I'll just be a little fourth wall here and be like, where did all my buttons go? But if you don't know me already, in this running RepCap. Before that, I was a journalist. So, and I also like to tell people I was a print person. I spent a long time at the Washington Post. I wrote a career advice column. I worked as a financial editor, and then I went over to Smart Brief, where I helped build up all their leadership and management newsletters, including Smart Brief and Workforce and some other things. So, been thinking about different ways to package up content and deliver content as a way to communicate and develop these messages and get them across in business for kind of a long time. It's kind of fun. Never, never, never boring. Can you, I need to advance my slides here. Okay, thank you. Sorry. See, I have no control. They took away all my powers. So what are we going to talk about? We're going to talk about this in the sense of what I call the 3 C's. And for me, that is clarity, consistency, and connection. So whatever you're doing when you're thinking about LinkedIn or really any other content strategy, always make sure that you're in good shape when you think about those 3 things. So what do I mean by clarity? Clarity here means knowing who you are and knowing what you want to say and what your goals are. And clarity shows up in a bunch of different ways. I think when we're talking about LinkedIn content, one way that clarity matters is it's in your voice. I think sometimes people think they have to talk in this corporate voice, in this very businessy voice. But in reality, what works really well is actually a more authentic, less polished. It doesn't mean that you are coming in just going wild and disregarding all the rules of grammar. It doesn't mean that you show up in a tank top, when you work in finance. It doesn't mean like that, but it's more like the way that you write is okay. The way that you speak is okay. If you have an accent, it's okay, right? I told somebody that the other day. They were apologizing for their accent. I was like, no, we pay extra for that, right? It's that is what is authentic. That is what is real. That is what makes you human. So get clarity on that and get comfortable with that. The second piece of clarity for me is knowing what your kind of message is. What are you known for? What do you know that other people in your industry don't know? I bet it's a lot, right? What do you know that your customers don't know? I bet it's a lot. Kind of hone in on those things, it's better to be known for one thing or a handful of things than to try to make content about a bunch of other stuff. And I think because one of the things that I often see people do, a common mistake, I guess, is they're like, okay, I know I should be doing more things on LinkedIn. And they see that successful people on LinkedIn are writing about entrepreneurship, or they're writing about leadership. But it's but if you're not a leadership expert, don't write about leadership, right? Make your content about the thing that you know about, that you can authentically communicate about. So, and to that point, when I show you examples today, I don't want you to think of them as copying them. I want you to take inspiration from them, because being a thought leader, part of that is you have to be yourself here, right? You want to bring your unique contributions. You do not want to just go copy people. And there are people who literally copy and paste. I saw a hilarious example of that earlier this morning, where someone had actually taken another kind of popular thought leader on LinkedIn, and they copied their content and put it in as their own content, except the original person, it was their tool. And they were the founder of the company. And the new person also like copied in that language that made it sound like, and it was like, wow, I guess thanks for promoting his tools, I guess. Like, I mean, you made it really easy. But it was one of those like, kind of bro-y, like cheer somebody on thought leadership. It was like, wow, you didn't even try, did you? Look for the stories that only you can tell. And this is, I think, important. It's particularly kind of when we start thinking about this AI content, when you go into LinkedIn and it wants to suggest a post for you, or like, it's like writing your comments and things like that. That is not what's going to make you a thought leader in your industry. It's not what's going to make you honestly feel good about yourself or excited about what you're sharing, because look for those stories that only you can tell. And I don't, we talk, there's a whole LinkedIn cringe, Reddit thing. You don't want to be like that. It doesn't mean that you're like, oh, I proposed to my girlfriend today, and here are the 3 things I learned about B2B marketing. It's like, don't do that. Okay. Just don't do that. Don't do that. I know some of y'all are laughing, but like, that's real. And I'll send the link to this Reddit thread after this is over. But like, make sure that whatever you're doing actually feels right for you. Like, I know y'all got good stories. I know you got good stories. So come in and tell them, and use the AI to shape them. So like, if you want to come and you want to type a bunch of stuff and you're like, whatever, well, then that's fine. But like, then use the AI to clean it up for you, make it a little shorter. It's like most of us can stand to write a little bit shorter, right? And I think it's good for that. The other thing you can do if you're looking for ideas, I record all my calls. And so whether I'm presenting to clients or other things, even just conversations or interviewing people, I actually will take the recordings afterwards and say, write me like 3 LinkedIn posts, like based on what I discussed, what I shared in this conversation. That's a pretty good way to start to get into those things that only you can tell. David C. Baker, who I'm going to show is actually one of our examples later on, as a great thought leader on LinkedIn and the way he uses it. He calls it as like the drop and give me 20. And the drop and give me 20 are like those 20 insights that only you can deliver. Those things that when you say them to clients, when you say them to your coworkers, that's those aha moments. Those are the foundation of your thought leadership on LinkedIn. So just little ideas. All right. Types of content to share. In fact, let's just go ahead and jump on over here. Because I do think we do have to have a lag here. So keep my brain kind of going. But the types of content that we can share. So that's also going to be part of your clarity bit. What kind of content do you want to be primarily known for? And I generally put it in 3 buckets. The first one, the easiest one to do for most people without getting themselves in trouble, is I would call it like how-to content. Okay. And an example that I've offered up here, this is for Lorraine Lee, and I'll make sure that I include this link whenever we send the follow-up email. Lorraine is really, really good at taking the things that she knows how to do and translating it into text-based posts. And I would say in particular, she also makes great videos, but telling you like step by step. Like, she's very methodical, but she writes these very helpful pieces. You'll look at the tone of this. It's very helpful. It's like, here's how to do this. And these types of posts, this is a way for you, like these little things that you know how to do that other people don't, like you can just share it. Do so well. People often ask if you set it up right and ask the question at the end. People often engage. They ask more questions. They share it. It's just really a lovely way to do this. And I think Lorraine does a great job of this. She posts a lot of different kinds of content, but this was a good example. The next piece of content, here's where I want you to start to be careful here, but not too careful. These are the hot takes, right? So hot takes are the thing that is most likely to take off for you in a good way or a bad way. So I would say these are things that you would say that you feel like might be controversial. These are things that other people in your industry may or may not agree with you about. I think my definition of thought leadership is like, if another smart person in your industry and in your field couldn't disagree with what you're saying, it is not thought leadership, right? That is not thought leadership. The definition of thought leadership is like, you've got to be pushing the edge of it in some way. And so for hot takes, first thing I would say, don't be mean with them. There's no need to be mean. I think when people get in trouble, it's because they wind up saying mean stuff. They wind up like saying racist stuff. They just wind up just being, don't do that, right? Stay out of that hole. But if you have an opinion about something that other people might get worked up about. So in my case, I actually pulled up an example of one that I did recently that actually got a ton of engagement. And I'd seen a lot of comments from freelancers talking about some of their frustrations around pricing And I had a lot of conversations that were frustrating around pricing and people saying, well, this much, I get this much a word. And I'm like, words are free. Like words are free. Words have no value. Like stop selling this. And I wasn't telling them this to scold them exactly. Like in part, I was saying this from the perspective of the person who hires freelancers. You keep coming to me and talking about how much you should get paid for work per word, but I can get infinite words now for $20 a month in a ChatGPT subscription. That doesn't mean that writers don't have value, but you need to talk about your work differently and you need to price your work differently because words are not the way. And this wound up kicking off some lively discussion in the comments about, wait, well, more words are more work. And I'm like, for whom? Like, it's like, that's when you start to get into the, like, who's using AI? Well, I don't use AI to do that. And it's like, it doesn't matter because other people are. And just because you're doing it the old school way doesn't make words are still, So just, it was meant as the tone I would call is more of a tough love, like kind of like, and hey, like you should start to rethink this if you want to get paid because people are getting really frustrated about not getting their work valued well. So that's my hot takes. And it was, again, hot takes about work. So I would steer clear generally. So politics gets funny here because I think there is a place to talk about politics on LinkedIn. I think make sure that it's tied to what you do. Like, so I don't hesitate to talk about politics, like in the sense of like, it's Pride Month and I'm going to post stuff about Pride, right? I'm going to DEI. So like, that's not the kind of thing I mean. But sometimes I'll just see these weirdly, I guess partisan is probably what I would try to avoid unless there's something that explicitly ties to your industry. And then that's legit, but just tread lightly because you'll just tick people off. And you're often not saying anything that interesting. So the next one that I want to talk about is asking for help. This is one where I think people are often surprised at how well this goes because we're afraid to ask for help. We're often afraid to do that. But there's a U2 song, or one of my favorite U2 songs, where Bono says, it's no secret that a friend is someone who lets you help. And that is how when we show that vulnerability, when we build those ties and we help each other like this, it does create a sense of investment in it. So one, you can legitimately get good ideas for your content. Like go take a real question. Don't pretend like it's like, what should I have for lunch today? Chicken salad or tacos. Like that's silly. Don't do that. It's more like, I am thinking through these things and I want your feedback. And you don't need a survey. You're just trying to like bandy it around. It's a way of thinking out loud. It's a way of building that connection. And then from a LinkedIn specific standpoint, when you do this, people answer the question and that is engagement. And the number one thing that LinkedIn is going to reward you for is engagement. So ask a question at the end. If you are just pontificating, your posts are going to go nowhere. Your reach is not going to do well. But if you are actually like asking questions, when they ask a question, you got to come back and answer. And the example that I gave here, this one is particularly interesting because I posted it on Facebook and on LinkedIn. I am rebooting my podcast and I have come in, I kind of know how the concept's going to be. And I've been stuck on like, well, I think I want to name it this, but it wasn't quite gelling for me. So instead of, and I was talking to friends about it in real life, I said, I'm going to throw this out on LinkedIn. And it serves two purposes for me. One, it lets me test out the idea to see if it's resonating at all, right? If people aren't interested in it, then that tells me something. And then it let me get the opinions of people that I don't naturally bump into, right? I've got a decent LinkedIn network here. And so the people who started jumping in and weighing in, I actually wound up because LinkedIn and Facebook, where I post across the two, with a completely different name than the two that I asked people to vote between. It came out completely different, and it was so much better. And it was actually kind of funny because I had said, A, should I call it off the cuff? B, should I call it, almost ready? C, something else entirely. And I got a comment over on Facebook where one of my friends said C, and people kept saying C. And I was like, that wasn't one of the options, guys. I guess that's what I'm naming the podcast. It's called something else entirely now. So that was something that wouldn't have happened had I not thrown that out there. And it was also an authentic request for help. So the other people, I'm going to show some examples of some of their stuff that do this really well, I think, of this kind of work in public. Lars Schmidt, the HR influencer, he's really good at that. And then Hung Lee, who does recruiting brain food, he likes to, somebody asked him what was the secret to his success. And he says, like, I let other people finish my thoughts. And that is, I think, one of those things. If you can get comfortable working in public this way, like it's a great way to build a community. So up next. What should you be writing about? What should you be posting about in your content? I want your little bit of homework here is to stop and think about a trend that's going on in your industry right now. Like, what is something that you have noticed that is going on? And that is what I want you to write about. Like, sit down and think, what do you have to say? And even if it's a couple of sentences, if you want to just kind of chat with a coworker about it, go back and look, frankly, in your Slack messages, go look in your emails. Like, what are you saying and kind of around that? And like, make that your first post. That's the post I want to see it. Tag me in it. So. All right. Next, let's talk about consistency. And what I mean by consistency does not mean you show up and post every morning at 8:45 a.m. It doesn't mean you sit down on Sunday night in HubSpot and schedule out or Sprout Social all of your posts for the next 2 weeks and like, boom, 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 I'm done. Okay. Consistency to me means now that you know who you are and you've got that clarity, it means bringing that person and that persona to the platform, like in a way that is predictable. That is how we build brands. Clarity and consistency are also how we build brands, guys. So to that end, I want you to think about finding a format that you enjoy. Like, we all have different preferences for the kind of content we like to make. Some of us like to write, we are great with just writing words. Some of us would rather get on camera. Some of us like design. It's like, figure out the one that you're going to do consistently. This is like exercise. It's the one that you enjoy. Okay. So find the format you enjoy. 2, I do want you to schedule this time. I know I just said, like, it doesn't mean scheduling isn't the whole thing, but if this is going to be part of your brand presence, then you need to carve out time for this. I don't know anybody who does this that sees real benefit, who doesn't actually make it part of their day. Like, whether it's I wake up in the morning and I drink my coffee and I see what's going on LinkedIn and I make it a point to comment. I make a post and then I comment on a handful of things, whatever you give yourself because there's 2 dangers. One is that you don't do enough. Like, if you get busy and you stop posting, and that's not awesome, right? The other danger is that you're just kind of always on there and you're just doing random stuff. And that's just a real productivity sink. You don't want to do that. But like, so once a day, check in, or maybe it's 3 days a week, like whatever, but like schedule it. All right. And the third point I want to say about this is that in many things, it is better for you to start small and kind of build up from that base than to be like, I'm going to post every day. Like, I see something, I'll see these like 30-day LinkedIn challenges, and it's like, awesome. If like your life allows that, if your schedule allows that, if your goals, like, it makes sense. But for most normal people, I think it is better to sit down and go, you know what? I'm going to post once a week. And I'm going to spend 15 minutes every morning commenting, reading and commenting on what other people are posting in my industry, people that I want to connect with and develop relationships. That is what I mean by consistency. And now if you start to see results that you like, and as you're building up that muscle, go to twice a week. Oh, now you're really having fun. Okay, go to 3 times a week. There's different ways to and then but it's what I don't want you to do is jump in all hands and then like burn out. Okay. Like, it's better for you to just build it up a little bit. It's better. All right. So what do we mean by types of formats? So the most common thing you're going to see are text. And this gets interesting because people often assume that the text needs to be short. That isn't true. That is true on LinkedIn pages. On your company page, you should probably keep it short and sweet, okay? Because the way that is rolling through and the reduced reach. However, on your personal profile, you can actually write up to the max. Like, the determinant for how long a post should be is not like, oh, under so many characters. It's actually how interesting is it? Like, does the idea need this to be expressed? And you're probably going to want to break it down. You can have steps. You can use emojis. You can do all that stuff. Text-based posts do great if the content is interesting, and they can be long. They can be some of the best performing ones I've ever put out were really long like this. Some of the most successful ones I've ever seen. And here I mentioned earlier, David C. Baker, he frequently writes, he writes short posts, he writes long posts, he does different things. But his very long post I read them. I read every top to bottom. And so here's why this is important. So one of the things that LinkedIn rewards is dwell time. And this is something you should be aware of thinking about any social media platform, because we're giving them our attention. They're trying to give us attention. So when you stop, if you post something long and someone reads the whole long thing, LinkedIn says, "Ooh, it must be interesting content. I'm going to show it to more people." Right. And if you would get a reputation and within the algorithm for, man, they post these long things and people read the whole thing and they stay in the platform, because that's the most important thing. You are staying in LinkedIn. They're not leaving LinkedIn. They're not clicking out anywhere else. You are actually dwelling on the content. You are staying there. You will be rewarded for that. Okay. Now, that doesn't mean you republish all your blog posts like this, but there's nothing wrong with writing long. Okay. Nothing wrong with it. Next, links. This is where links get interesting, because I think a lot of times this is the first thing people want to post. And on your company page, fine, post the link. You're going to have to put ads behind it anyway if you really want a serious reach. But they're like, well, I just want to post my blog post. I want to take this blog post and I'm going to publish it over here. And that's usually what people do. It'll pull in an image, they automatically pull in the featured image and that sort of thing. But here, this image from Hung, this is a very engaging post. And if you look through here, and you might not catch it at first, this is in fact a link post, because if you go all the way down, he's actually sharing the registration link here. And that's what turns it into a link post for me. Okay. A text-based, he could have done the text-only version of this, in which he posted the text and then down said link in the comments. You'll see that a lot. The thing you should know about link posts is that the algorithm will reduce their reach compared to a text-only post. I consider the text to be kind of the baseline. Text only is the baseline. Text plus an image, we get more reach, right? The algorithm favors that. Text plus a link, down. Okay, we go down. Because why? Because LinkedIn doesn't want people clicking off. For the same reason Instagram doesn't let you do it at all, right? It's they don't want you going somewhere else. So use those very judiciously. It is almost always better to drop that link in the comments. If you're going to take blog posts, you turn them into social posts. You don't just drop the link in. It'll go nowhere. So the next thing, video. So video, I know I talk about video a lot. Video is LinkedIn, the format's favorite type of content right now. And that's true of pretty much all the other social channels too. So short form video has exploded, and it is not just Gen Z. It is not just any particular age. It is not just about consumer things. It's we are apparently all just watching 45-second videos. That's how apparently all we're sitting around watching. And it's whether you're talking about Reels and TikTok and YouTube. LinkedIn is no different. So the ideal type of video for LinkedIn is, at this point, something that's maybe a minute or two long. It should have substance to it. You need to have captions. Give yourself a good thumbnail. The most important thing is a human face. This is not about animations. You do want motion graphics are nice, to make kind of liven it up. You want to brand it. But the thing that will drive this is a highly engaged, animated human face. And so the example that I've got here, this is Josh Lichtner. And this was a video that we made partly when we were working, I think, with BetterWorks. And these videos were short. We had done a blog, an interview, wrote a blog post, and we cut probably 24 videos out of this all in. And what's interesting about this, you take these and you can run it on LinkedIn, you can run it in different places. There's also a place for longer videos, on other channels, but this is not the place where you run your 20-minute thing. Just quick hits, bright colors. You'll also notice the other reason why this stands out in the feed. It's lots of color. And then Josh actually has this kind of embedded in his whole strategy now. He puts out a weekly email newsletter called Find a Way Weekly that has a video in it, that's part of the newsletter that they also share on LinkedIn. So you can often find a way to kind of do both of those things. And that newsletter, that video becomes part of how we grow the newsletter. So this is the type of video that wins. Just straight at the camera. Straight at the camera. Tell me something interesting. Josh has stories for days. So he has videos for days. All right. The other thing you're going to see a lot of, this also outperforms the text post, and it definitely very much outperforms the link-based post. I'd say it's second only to video. And this is where we make carousels. And you'll often see these. They're really PDF. We call them carousels. They're not carousels in the same way that they are over on Insta. These are actually PDFs. They're uploaded as documents. And I remember I want to go back and figure out who was the first person that saw when LinkedIn was letting us put in documents that it would like take up all the space, right? And because this is why it works. One, it is you upload it, people can kind of swipe through it. If they're brightly colored, you really need it to be simple and bold, and it needs to be something that makes you stop scrolling. And I love these because, again, that thing where everybody wants to post their links, like don't post your links to your SEO post. Go into your SEO post and figure out which of those headers can be converted to carousels. Make yourself a template for these. And I think this one here from Gong is a perfect one. Like, this is a screenshot of it, of course, but if you were to just swipe through, you'll see them, right? It's like swipe, go through it. Like there's an ideal length for them. It's like 10 to 12 slides, like kind of, you're thinking of them slides, but they're vertical. They are portrait. They're not landscape. I think I've seen some of them be landscape, but portraits kind of, if you think about it on mobile, this is a very accessible way to consume information. So make yourself a branded template. You can take, if you put out a report, you can take like key takeaways. I mean, there's just so much you can do with this, but make it bold, make it scannable. Don't overload it with text. The next thing too, we talked about video, but I didn't talk about this specifically, LinkedIn Live. So you can also go live on LinkedIn. And a lot of people are using this as a substitute for traditional webinars. Like we stream to LinkedIn, but some people are just straight up just going on into LinkedIn and doing this. And y'all see, I mentioned my friend Lorraine here again. She also uses these very, very well. Y'all said also she used to work at Prezi and at LinkedIn. And now she's working as a speaker and as a coach and a consultant. But she's in her element here. Okay. Like she's in her element. But if you are the kind of person who is a great speaker and great, frankly, extemporaneous speaking, and the idea of just turning on the camera and rolling, get the mic up, then this is great for you, right? Like they can think about it as a webinar. You can think about it as a live show. Like, I don't know, you can do it spontaneously even. Like when you go live, this pushes out an alert to all of your followers, all of your connections. So it's kind of cool if you're ready to take that kind of step. LinkedIn newsletters come up a lot. So I am a big fan right now of LinkedIn newsletters. So what I want to say though, is they are not a substitute generally for your email strategy, but they can be a great workaround if you're having trouble with your email strategy. So LinkedIn newsletters, when you create, they make it dead simple. Like you don't have a lot of choices in the design. It's beautiful. Like you make like 3 choices. Like all of your thoughts need to be put into the constraints of the content. Ideally, you put it out weekly. Anything less than that is probably not going to grow the way you want it to. Make it primarily curated content. The ones that we've launched a few of these for clients in the last year. We actually also switched the managing editor newsletter over to LinkedIn, and the growth has outpaced what we had been seeing in the more if somebody came to the website and opted in. It just gets in front of a bigger audience. I would not just take your regular newsletter and copy and paste it in here. You should find a way to differentiate the experience. But this newsletter is so easy to make. And if you're already making other types of content, you can post this. And what I see happening with these is people are you're curating stuff, you're putting things even in your library of content, you're coming up with a good hook, and you're posting it. This is in most of the client feeds that we have control over and insight into. This is the most popular thing they post that week. It gets the greatest reach. It gets the greatest engagement, like in terms of organic. And when you launch one and you send it out, depending on what your current follower base is for your page, it is going to go out and everybody that follows your page is going to get invited to register, which is kind of cool, right? So I'm usually looking at a conversion rate. I say 10% makes me really happy. Now, if you get above 10% in that first push, you've got something, right? So however frequently, if you start off at every 2 weeks, go and take it to weekly and start growing that baby. And then if you really get it moving, it starts to actually contribute to the growth of your page. So this one right here that I'm sharing the example for, this is for Herman, the whole brain thinking folks at HBDI. And they had a newsletter and they were kind of putting it out, like, and people were, so they had a lot of people subscribing, but it was like getting people outside of the existing community aware of it. So we took the existing content, put it in here, and I mean, it's growing like crazy. It's only been out for like a month and a half, and they're up to almost 2,500 subscribers. Like, I mean, and we were only every other week for the first few weeks. And it's a very simple concept. The idea of, hey, this is how you bring whole brain to work. We were just going to give you some tips. Like, it's existing content. It's all adapted. Tells people what's going on. I would say I had somebody tell me that they thought these were already saturated and there were too many. I was like, I think they're actually just getting started, because it's a really great way it's top of the funnel though. Think of it as very top. It's a type of social. You won't get great analytics, like not like you get out of email, but you will get reach. You will good reach. All right, audio events. I'm going to mention this one. I think this one hasn't really taken off. I think maybe perhaps like LinkedIn has tried like different formats, It's like, oh, we're going to, every time, it's like when people roll out new formats on other channels, they test them out. I think the audio events haven't quite taken off. This would essentially be almost like a podcast, and it's live. It's a type of LinkedIn Live, but no video. And I think most people who are going to do this, they go ahead and go for the video. However, a few people do interesting things with this. So Andy Foote is one of them. And he's also someone that if you're interested in LinkedIn specifically, he's someone that I look to for guidance. And he gets very deep into the algorithm. And like if somebody wanted to go hire a specialty LinkedIn coach and like really dig in, he's like one of the handful of people I would recommend for that work. But he does essentially I think he's paused right now, but a daily audio show. And like you call in and there's like, the topic is like whatever people want to talk about. He's like, you tell me, like we come in and we're going to discuss it. And it's kind of a free for all. And he just sort of moderates the whole thing. And it's not long. It's pretty fun. You can meet some different people. He's taking a little break from it right now, I think, but I think he's one of the few that I've seen really kind of pull that off well. Like you need to know a lot of people. You need to be good at extemporaneous, like you don't really mind like, yeah, I'm just going to go live now because it's, 11 o'clock or whatever. But check that one out if you're thinking about something like that. I would not consider it a good substitute for a podcast most of the time, just because most people would struggle with the idea of going live, and you're not going to be able to like edit. You're just going to be running content out. So, all right. Other piece here, collaborative articles. Some of you, if you've seen where somebody in their name, it'll say something like top thought leadership voice or top content marketing voice or top sales. So actually I have a top thought leadership voice. I'm very proud of it. I got it by answering 3 questions. Okay. If you want to know how easy this is, these collaborative articles are something that LinkedIn is doing. I think this is their SEO play in the back, and it's actually kind of brilliant. They're definitely using AI to uncover these topics. They're definitely using AI to write these questions in these section headers, because sometimes they are absurd. Okay. They are absurd. But some of them are pretty good. And if you want to take like a minute, if you get prompted around those and there's something you want to get that badge for, go and answer a few questions. Like it's literally 3 questions. And if you get a few people to like what you're saying, as long as you're being sincere, I find that you get the boost pretty quickly. And then I was actually surprised. Like I lost my badge like a week ago, I guess, because after 60 days, I was like, oh no, I can't have that. So I had to go find some new things to weigh in on. But I just go in there and like answer the little questions. Like it's not that hard. Algorithm in terms of research, like it's unclear. Doesn't seem like this really does much for your reach. I mean, I guess it looks cool. I mean, don't y'all respect me now that you know that I'm a top thought leadership voice on LinkedIn? No, you're like, no, you just told us all you did was answer 3 questions. It's like, whatever. I'm very active on Reddit. No, no. I'm not. So, but if you go through, I do believe when we start talking about Gen AI search, I'm going to zoom out here for a second. In Gen AI search, in organic search, we used to fight to just be the top, get our page on our content to be the top ranked thing, like that one blog post, that one pillar page. That is not how Gen AI builds like those summaries that you're seeing with Google. Like Gen AI search is built not focused on that one page. It is built on mentions of you. It is all about probability, and it is all about sort of essentially nodes in a network. So posting on LinkedIn and including posting in articles like this, what I am telling the internet, like with a capital I here, is that I write about these topics. And if I legitimately do this like 3 times a month or whatever, it's like I'm just building more nodes that associate me with those words. So that is why it's important that you focus on your area of expertise, because you want to build an association with you and like that topic. And that's going to increase the odds that you get recognized. Like it comes up sort of in your schema that, hey, that's what this person talks about. This is what will pop up with their name. All right. Let's talk about connection. And then I'll take some questions here. We can kind of dig into some of the tactical stuff or the philosophical stuff. But connection to me, this is why the social part of the social network, I think, aside from like inconsistency and like trying to be somebody that you're not, the other big sort of chunk of mistakes that I see people make are they come in and they just start blasting out content. Like they've gone and made stuff and they're posting it. They often are scheduling in advance and they're never actually coming back to the content. They're not engaging in a conversation unless you are already famous. Okay. And I mean, you are like Bill Gates, you've got your channel, you're posting, does Ryan Reynolds have a LinkedIn, profile? I don't know. But like, if you are not like coming in, having already had a natural, huge audience, you are highly unlikely to build one if you're not responding and engaging with the people who comment on your content. Like LinkedIn figures out pretty fast that you are a post and run. Like what is there? It's like the dine and dash. Like what is the equivalent of that? It's like I dropped some content and then I never came back. And then the next day I did some more. And then 3 weeks later, they're like, see, this was a waste of my time. Right? No, it's like if you were to pick a ratio for like time spent posting, time spent talking versus time spent listening and engaging and commenting on other people, I'd go 5-to-1 minimum, closer to 10-to-1. Like that, it will actually build your profile faster. And frankly, I think it's less work, like to just go around and actually say things on other people's stuff. So this will benefit the algorithm. It will benefit your profile. You will rank better for the things that you kind of get bubbled up for things you want to find. But it also will be good for your actual relationships. People ask me, like salespeople will say, well, how do I send them a note and I follow them and then I DM them. And it's like, no, you go like their content, like connect with them, like their content, engage with them. Like the sale will come. The sale will come. The DMs will happen naturally if you've been having a conversation. And I will say, actually earlier this week, I had an exchange with a freelance writer that I think kind of summarized this perfectly, because she was also posting about how anxious she feels about pitching herself. But what she did, she and I had been like on a couple of threads together. She had commented on the thing that I had written. And then we had commented on some other stuff. And now we're following each other. We're connecting each other because I see that she's doing interesting things and saying interesting things. And then at the point she sends me a note, she's like, hey, just wanted to let you know I really enjoyed your comments on this or whatever. It was just like, she was like, that was really helpful information to me. And I'm sure it'll be helpful for other people. At that moment, I opened up her profile and I saw HR tech writer. I'm an HR tech writer hirer, like I have an HR tech. That's cool. And I was like, and we were having this kind of meta discussion. I was like, well, this was a really smooth pitch, right? Like she's like, it's pitch without pitching. Like, because now I know I've already seen her writing and it was just so easy. Now she's on my radar, right? Like, and that was so natural. Like she didn't have to be like, hi, I'd like to write for you. Like she didn't have to say that. So, things around, when you post, I mentioned this a few times, you can't just run away, but like the golden hour is really important. And it's still important. You post something, the first hour, whatever engagement you get in the first hour will determine the fate of your post. Like whether or not it is, because it kind of goes through these things. It's like there's an initial percentage of engagement that you automatically get, right? So you've got 1,000 people that you're connected with. You post, 2 to 3% of those people are going to see it. Okay. And if they engage, if a certain threshold like engages, they will start to show it to other people in like the second degree network, right? And then if it goes up above that, engagement, comments are what really drive engagement. Comments, then likes, and then shares, ironically. Like they don't, for whatever reason, they don't really favor just sharing things. They want the comment because what increases dwell time? Me sharing it on my network might be good for you as a thought leader, but it doesn't actually increase dwell time. You leaving a comment that then that person comes back and responds to, like, now we're talking. Now we've got people staying in the platform and actively engaging. So stick around for the hour. This is like, if you're scheduling your content this way, the day you post, like plan on being there to respond to like, and give meaningful things. You don't want to do the thanks. Oh, good to hear from you. Like that means nothing. Like that means absolutely nothing. Okay. It really doesn't. Like the algorithm is smarter than that. So tags, this is another area where it is very easy to be obnoxious, and we're not going to be obnoxious because we're trying to build connections, right? So you do want to tag people because this is a social network. Okay. And I'm going to back up here. There was something that I heard years ago at my very first South by Southwest this was early days of social media. We were talking about Twitter of all things mostly, and there was a psychologist there, and he was talking about research they had done about social media and about people's engagement. And it was that y'all know the number one reason why people at the time, and I think this is still true, get on social media. It is to see what other people are saying about them. Number two reason is to see what people are saying about people that they don't like. That's it. Those are the two reasons. You go to see what people are saying about you, and you go see what people are saying about your enemies. Now, what they're saying about my friends is also in that list, but it's not nearly as exciting or nearly as motivating to log on and see what people are saying about my enemies. And those of you in the US who are watching all the things that just went down politically for us, how many of you are basically hanging out on Facebook every day right now just to see what people are saying about your political enemy? That's what we're doing. It's like, that's parasocial relationships. That's a whole other thing. But when we tag people, we're saying something about them. What is the number one reason why people like to get on? Oh, they want to see what people are saying about them. So tag them. But you only want to tag people that are authentically related to the content, right? So grab those 3 or 5 people. Like if you did a webinar, you did a podcast, you interviewed your guest, please tag the guest. If the whole thing was spurred by, I was having a conversation with Grace and Sam, and this week, tag Grace and Sam, right? Like, that is natural. That is organic. What you don't want to do is post something and then tag a dozen of your target customers to make sure they see it. That is spam. Okay, that's spam. It is really about building up those relationships. So next, the other thing we're not going to do is pods. Pods have been around for a while. I still see them sort of floating around. They don't work. Okay. The algorithm is smart enough to know when a group of people have decided, well, you come in on mine and I'll come in on yours. While it is natural that we are all in like kind of hubs of people that we tend to collaborate with, that is actually not what the algorithm is going to favor. Like it knows that. And guess what? It can really easily detect the behavior of like swarm of people bouncing within like these little pods. So it was the kind of strategy that worked for a while, like years ago. It came out of Instagram originally. Actually, even out of Instagram, it came out of MLMs. So it came out of Instagram. Pods came out of Instagram, came out of MLMs. And pretty much you should, if anything you want to do on social media is something that started in MLMs, you should think about your life and the choices you've made and pursue a different strategy. So you'll get punished for this. Next, hashtags. So hashtags are really important. Do you remember I said the reach thing? How like you post something and if your friends like it, like there's millions of people and you engage with them and then it goes out to second degree. And then if they're really, really engaged and the hashtag, the next thing, the way you go viral on LinkedIn, which I'm never going to not be able to use my viral, like air quotes for this, but it means that the hashtag, like something around the topic, basically. So if I post about content marketing and it gets picked up a bunch, and actually a good example will be that freelance post. I tagged it like freelance life or freelance writing because once enough people that were even outside of my second degree network, they got into it, then it got pushed to the freelance channel. Like all the people who are following freelance, that's now showing up in their feed if they were following freelance life. So that's a big, that is what it means to essentially get that kind of traction organically. It means the hashtag there. So use hashtags, research them. You can make sure that you're using hashtags that other people are actually following. Like put yourself, be a person, think like a person and says, would a person follow this hashtag? And like mathematically, you can check this in LinkedIn. So absolutely, people follow sales tips. That's a legit hashtag. Go and see like whatever your idea is. You can also create your own branded hashtags. There's nothing wrong with that. Like start to build it, over with BetterWorks. We use Make Work Better as a hashtag because that's part of a campaign. And Make Work Better is like interesting. And like, that's the thing we've got people using, like talking about how to make work better. Like that's a good branded kind of hashtag. All right. That brings me to the end of like the plan part of this. Again, I want you to think less about the tactics, less about even the specifics of things. And I really want you to think about why you're there, right? Like really get clarity on who you are, what you want to say, and your goals. I want you to think about like how you're going to show up in a way that is consistent. Like pick one format that is best for you, right? And like that you feel confident you can show up with consistently, and then make time to build connections. Like your goal is not to get followers, okay? Your goal is to build connections. And like, depending on what your role is in your job, I mean, that could be in a peer group that you learn from, it could be a prospect base to fill on, to build up on, to sell to. It could be the people that you would work, your next job, right? There's all kinds of ways to look at that, but I really want you to think about the community that you're building. So let's jump in and see. Do we have questions? All right, so everybody said come in. All right. Oh, here we go. So I've got one here. I did all the video on LinkedIn. I haven't been in tune with the platform for a while. Woo, yeah. So video took over the world, okay? But it's definitely in LinkedIn. I still think there's a lot of opportunity here. And doesn't mean that everybody's doing it well, but for the people who are doing it, like there is a lot of opportunity for reach. And if you think about it, it's a great way to build connections. It's what we're craving right now, especially I think with so much AI generated text. I feel like it's hard to trust text now, right? I know that with deep fakes, we are going to head toward a world where we also have a lot of people's, like the web videos, we're going to be able to trust video. But for now, our brains still trust video. And the other interesting thing about that too is that they trust a specific type of videos that we might have used to have made, like where we did animations and a lot of motion graphics. I mean, people spend gobs of money making these. That video still has a place in certain settings, but the video that is actually more likely to succeed here is like a direct to camera. You're just looking at the camera and you're just being a person and you're just saying interesting things. And it's okay if you have wrinkles, and it's okay if a piece of your hair is sticking up, because all of those things mean you're real, right? Our brains now read that as like, that person's real, right? And that's a good thing right now. So yeah, video is kind of where it's at. All right, let's see if we have any other questions. I'm looking here. I see they're in the chat or in the Q&A. All right. So hashtag. So, okay, here we go. Actually, I'm going to start here with thoughts on operating as an institution versus an individual. So this gets there's an interesting breakdown here. So pages, company pages, which would be operating as an institution, those inherently have less organic reach. You should think of those as primarily people are looking you up and they will go there because they want to find out things about you. They're good for employer branding. They're good for vetting. You do want to have content there. If you want that content to get reach, you will have to pay for it. Okay. Companies buy ads. So if you're posting things over there and you're in the company voice, it's got a place, but think of it as more of a pull than a push unless you're buying ads. And you have to have a page to buy ads. Personal profiles inherently get more reach. People want to hear from people. So founder-led marketing and personal branding led is actually a very effective way, or like CEOs, leadership, whoever your thought leaders are, like put them out there. So if you're going to make videos or you're going to make carousels, it's cool and all to put it on your page. You're going to have to pay an ad to make that go. But if you put it in people's profiles, like you will naturally get like significantly more reach. Okay. So that is a balance. There's also a risk in having it be tied to a person, but the person inherently gets more reach. So, and you need to let them be a person and not in the brand voice all the time. Like it shouldn't be inconsistent, but let them say interesting things. Best tool to research relevant hashtags that have 500 plus followers. I did this manually. Like I go into LinkedIn itself. You can actually see in LinkedIn how many followers a hashtag has. Like go in and just research them. Like it'll actually auto-populate for you when you start to type it. So just search, just go and see. And like you're really, as a brand and as a person, like you're really only going to want to have a tight little cluster anyway. Like you also, oh, by the way, as a LinkedIn user, you get to choose 5 hashtags to follow. So make the 5 that you follow also be part of like that should align with your branding, but go find good ones. So let's see, what metrics on LinkedIn are the most important to track for ROI? So ROI gets interesting because LinkedIn, I think, serves as top, middle, and bottom of the funnel. Like to me, I'm more of a demand gen mindset when it comes to content. It's like, are they making building awareness? Are we nurturing the relationship? I'm probably not going to convert. Like it's not a conversion channel. I guess I will definitely say that it's not a place like you can convert, but I wouldn't judge it that way. And then there's relationships like retention and things like that. So at a high level, I'd look at engagement metrics, like how many followers are we getting? Like how many engagements are we getting? Like how many, like that's the raw numbers. Are we growing the account? Are we expanding our reach? Look for trends, not absolutes. Look for trends relative to yourself and trends relative to your competitors. So that's the one piece, like inside LinkedIn itself. The second thing, and this isn't the ROI question, but I think this is what's in the analytics that I think is even more valuable than trying to like tie it to like a specific sale, is use it to figure out what is interesting to your audience. So if you're thinking about doing something in a product, like go make a LinkedIn post about it first. Okay. Because if you can't get people to engage in a LinkedIn post about it, you're not going to be able to sell it to them for actual money. Like that's a good test. And like look and see patterns. Oh, when we post about this, we get more engagement. When we post about that, we get less. Like that can be a clue to even invest in content in other directions. And then sort of lastly, depending on how you're managing the social, like go ahead and connect. Like we use HubSpot. We have other clients that use HubSpot. Connect your social accounts that you're managing through it. Connect it to HubSpot. And even if you're not scheduling, you can still get some insight on that. And then you can monitor at the contact level. You can see influence contacts. Like, hey, we posted here. This person engaged with the content over on LinkedIn, and then they went to the blog post. And like you can start to get a picture of that. But I would really try to think about it holistically as part of your general brand awareness. Like what you're going to have trouble with, the idea that like I posted this day on LinkedIn and it led to this sale and it made this much revenue. And so therefore the ROI on posting on LinkedIn, every LinkedIn post is $13, or the ROI on this post was $13, but this one was a negative 11. It's like, don't get that granular. Look for lift, look for patterns, look for intel, like use it to get closer to the customer. So, all right. Well, that brings us to the end. And we have exactly 1 minute left. And I want to thank everybody for joining me. I'm going to send this out on demand. I also send out some of the links. Like I've got a post that's got the links to all of these. Some of the influencers that we've mentioned are some of my favorites. I highly encourage you to go and follow them. I also encourage you to drop your LinkedIn channel, like your LinkedIn page right now in the comments so you can all follow each other and I'll come follow you too. So we can all connect if we're not already connected. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.